Pharmaceuticals will be tariffed probably at the end of the month. And we're going to start off with a low tariff and give the pharmaceutical companies a year or so to build. And then we're going to make it a very high tariff.
President Trump using tariffs to bring key industries back to the United States, like aluminum, steel, cars, and copper. Next up, pharmaceuticals. And the biggest names in the industry have already committed billions to manufacture in the U.S., so going forward, America won't have to rely on other countries for the drugs we need. Taylor, talk about, you got the tariff piece of this, but there's more pieces to this than just the tariffs he's talking about to kind of make this possible.
Yeah, so first, I think the strategy sounds good. Give them a year, because you can't expect someone to say, okay, I'll build your antibiotic here tomorrow. That takes time. So I like the plan. You start with the low tariff, give them a year. As long as they have a plan in place, there is ground being broken, legit things happening, and then we'll do a much higher tariff a year from now. To me, that feels doable. Brian, the big, beautiful bill that is now law, I think helps, because remember, it wasn't just 100% expensing for factory equipment and plants. It's actually 100% expensing for the actual factory itself, the actual plant itself. So again, this further, I hope, incentivizes a lot of these companies to come in and do it here. Frankly, I think people would get on board with this. Jackie, we've talked a lot about what did you learn from COVID? I 1,000% would pay more for my drug in the interim if I know 100% it will be onshore on American soil a couple years from now. I'm willing to eat that cost to make sure it doesn't go to China.
A lot of big pharma names up on this news today as well, which you might find surprising given we're talking about tariffs, and yet they're up, so there must be an expectations game here.
I think the expectations game is that it's positive for them to be back here, and this was a Band-Aid that had to be ripped off. And as trade tensions escalate and our relationship with China eventually over time, it's going to continue to deteriorate. It won't be good for these companies or their stocks if they're, manufacturing abroad and not at home. Ultimately, I think this was a hard thing to do. I think he had to do it. I don't think there's another human being in the world that could have done this the way Donald Trump has done it. And he's also, remember what he did several months ago when he said, oh, you're charging us the most expensive drug prices because Europe just says, well, I can't pay you that, so we're going to pay you this. He's going to hold their feet to the fire to collect more from the other countries that were underpaying and ripping us off, as Donald Trump said, to make sure that some of these costs are offset. It's brilliant. I would just, as somebody who has been sick, who's needed drugs, thank you.
Dagan.
Be careful with tariffing pharmaceuticals, because that is more money that will be spent by the federal government. The Medicaid and Medicare combined represent more than 1/3 of pharmaceutical spending in the United States. And that is a very conservative estimate. So even through tariffs, if pharmaceutical prices go up, that is borne by the federal government, the American taxpayer. And this comes at a time when, again, last month, the interest on the national debt hit a record for the month. It was $144 billion. We're running on average higher than $100 billion a month just in interest, north of $1.2 trillion this year alone. So anything that adds financial stress to the federal fisc, that adds financial stress to Medicare, as an example, because the hospital trust fund runs out of money in 8 years, with an automatic benefit cut of 11% to 89 cents on the dollar. So with pharmaceuticals specifically, that's tricky.
But he's starting low.
He's staging this, and I think it's important. And to Dagan's point, you get the year, you go in stages. There are much further stages down the road. For instance, not a lot of talk about the APIs. All right, how these pharmaceuticals are made. You get something made in India, but 80% of the APIs are made in China. So it says made in India. We need to take the time to stage this and control our pharmaceutical chain. And a lot of these pharmaceuticals are involved in all other kinds of things, the investment structures they have.
Yeah.
So we need to watch this. But if we're going to own this, it takes longer than a Trump term in office in 4 years, but it takes a set foundation, which brings us to Congress. What can Congress do to make sure that not just bills that are codified, taxes, and all the things we're dealing with, expensing and all of that, it's all important because they need to see a business line that's 20, 30 years out. You don't want to see them fleeing Route 206 in New Jersey. You want to see them building more across America.
Well, tens of billions moving into the U.S. right now from pharma companies. I hesitate to say this, Jackie, but even your Merck, your stock pick Merck, producing new version of Keytruda in the U.S., that doesn't mean you have to buy the stock, everybody. Chipotle is still great, but that is news from Merck.
Really?